Hi, this is Peter Schiff again with another video blog. This is Thursday, March 12th, 2009. Well, the bear market rally continues today. I think the Dow is up over 200 points. The dollar, though, was down again, even with the Swiss franc being down about 3% on the day as a result of the Swiss bank cutting their interest rates. I think they're now down to 1/4%, and intervening in the currency markets to actually sell their currency down against other currencies. But the dollar still managed to weaken. The New Zealand dollar, which we mentioned yesterday on the radio, they cut their rates to 3%. The New Zealand dollar actually strengthened about 2 or 3% on the day, as did other currencies on the day. Gold was up about $20 an ounce, probably also related to what the Swiss did, because by making their own currency less appealable, they raised the appeal of gold. And I think they also raised the specter of inflation in Switzerland, and they make Swiss citizens more apt to look for a safe haven, such as gold. However, I do think that the weakness in the Swiss franc today against the dollar is probably a buying opportunity for the franc, because as bad as the monetary policies are in Switzerland, they're far worse in the United States. And so I think any weakness in the Swiss franc against the dollar is an opportunity to buy. But the fact that the Swiss are following in our footsteps and debasing their money along with the dollar and pursuing reckless monetary policies, that is negative for currencies everywhere and positive for gold and positive for assets. And asset prices rose again today, as I expected. As the U.S. market is rallying, you're seeing even greater rallies abroad and in commodities. Oil prices were up almost $5 a barrel today. And so I think any strength you're going to see in U.S. stocks is going to be exceeded by strength in commodities, by commodity stocks, and by international stocks, particularly when you take into consideration weakness in the U.S. dollar that I think is going to accompany any strength in stock markets. But what I want to talk about today, I just finished watching a speech made by President Obama in front of an organization of small business leaders. And if you listen to that speech, and you just kind of listen to part of the speech, part of it sounds like he's reading right from my book Crash Proof, or reading from some of my commentaries. You have President Obama talking about the need for sacrifice, talking about how we have to put an end to our phony prosperity, to the booms and busts, that we need to rebuild the economy on a solid foundation. It can't be an economy based on leverage and debt and borrowing, but it needs to be real. He said we need a genuine prosperity. We can't live in an illusion. All of that is true. All of that is what I've been saying. But then the other Barack Obama in the same speech is the same Barack Obama who says we need more credit. He's saying that credit, consumer credit, is the lifeblood of our economy. It's not. It's the cancer that's sucking the lifeblood out of our economy. We don't need consumers to have credit. We need producers to have credit so they can make the things that consumers buy. But they're not going to have any credit if it's all squandered on consumption. He also doesn't seem to appreciate the fact that if we want the economy to have a solid foundation, the government is not going to put it there. The free market is going to do it, because it's the market that understands what a solid foundation is, because the people who are putting it together are risking their own capital. And there's a penalty for failure. That's bankruptcy. That's losing money. You have market signals. When a company goes bankrupt, the bankruptcy is a good thing, because a company that is inefficient is being put down, is being allowed to die, so that more profitable companies can flourish. More profitable companies can use those resources more effectively. The problem is Barack Obama, he wants to rebuild the foundation of our economy himself. He thinks the government can do it. He wants to spend money on education, on the environment, on health care, on alternative energy, on the things that he needs to make a solid foundation. Well, how does he know? How does Barack Obama know? And what messages will he get if some of the investments he's making are wrong? Because there is no profit motive. There's nothing that puts out a failed government program or a failed government department. They just keep growing and growing and growing, because they get the money from taxes, or they borrow it, or they print it. There is no market mechanism and no market discipline. So unfortunately, even though our president seems to understand that there was something inherently wrong with the phony prosperity of the past, with the booms and busts, he really doesn't have any idea why we had those booms and busts, and he really doesn't have an idea what is necessary to have the lasting economic recovery that he seeks. And I don't necessarily doubt that he's genuine in what he hopes to accomplish. I just know that his methods are doomed to fail. That there's no way the government and the wisdom of bureaucrats in Washington is going to replace the wisdom of the free market and the profit motive and the invisible hand. And there's no way that we're going to restore a sound economy, an economy based on savings and investment, if the president is encouraging more of the very reckless borrowing and spending that is at the root of the very phony economy that he's now criticizing. In fact, when he was meeting with these business leaders, he actually described the way more credit in the economy is going to help the economy. That if somebody can just get more credit, they can buy a house. And if they can buy a house, they can remodel the kitchen. And if they remodel the kitchen, then the contractor is going to get a job. And if the contractor can get a job, he's going to go buy a computer. And then the president said, we're off to the races. We're not off to the races. That's not how it worked. If it was that simple, every country would be rich. Wealth and employment do not come because people spend money. And they don't spend money because governments create credit out of thin air. The way we're off to the races is the opposite of Barack Obama. He's basically preventing us from even getting started in a new race. He's keeping us stuck at the starting block. What we need is the government to get out of the way so we can get in the race. And we can't win the race until we participate. But what's going to make us win the race is savings. If we can save our money, if we can stop spending, then entrepreneurs will have money that they can borrow, and they can invest in new capital, in providing goods and services, in providing employment. That's how the economy is going to grow. Barack Obama wants to build the foundation from the roof up. The market is going to build it from the ground up. And if Obama tries to build it his way, it's going to be no more stable than the phony economy that he's criticizing. Now, of course, Barack Obama wants somebody to buy a house. He's saying there's somebody who's thinking about buying a house. Let's get them credit. There's a much better way to let that person buy a house, because chances are that person shouldn't buy a house because they can probably rent a house, just like I am, much more economically. So why should the government try to encourage people to overpay for houses when there are more economical alternatives available in the rental market? Now, if the government didn't artificially direct credit to the housing market, housing prices would be falling much more rapidly than they are. And in fact, if housing prices fell enough, then maybe buying would be more economical than renting. And maybe this individual who is now trying to decide whether to buy a house would actually buy, because she would buy as a result of low prices. And you know what? She wouldn't need help getting a loan, because if the prices were low enough, she wouldn't have to borrow that much money. Or if she had to borrow the money, it would be easier to convince a lender to write the mortgage, because there'd be a lot less risk in the mortgage, because the property would be less expensive, therefore the mortgage payments would be lower, they would be more easily made. It's ridiculous. And it follows through to this whole idea about credit. And I talked about it on my radio show yesterday. I didn't blog on it on this site because I talked about it on Wall Street Unspun, and I'm writing my commentary about it right now. That'll be on my website tomorrow, because Meredith Whitney did this piece in the Wall Street Journal where she said that we need to preserve credit card lines, because Americans rely on their unused credit card lines for the what ifs. What if my kid needs braces? What if I lose my job? What if my dog gets sick? Well, you know what? That's what savings are for. Your what if money is why you save. If your dog gets sick, you pay for it from your savings. You don't, you save for a rainy day. The idea is not, if it rains, I'm going to whip out my credit card. You have to have savings. You have to pay for life's vicissitudes with your savings, with your money. That's what it's all about. And in the meantime, while you're saving your money for a rainy day, society, entrepreneurs have access to those savings. They don't just sit there. They pay you interest, but they use the savings productively. They invest in building the economy of the future, in building the very foundation that Barack Obama knows we need, but the very foundation that his policies are preventing from the market from creating. He's putting roadblocks. He is unknowingly or knowingly trying to encourage more of the very activity that is at the root cause of our problems. Anyway, that's it for today.